something approaching from ahead, and trolls in the halls behind. Caught between rock and a troll's place, Eber decided that there couldn't possibly be more trolls ahead than there were back in the fairy halls. Forward was their best chance at escape. If they had to, they would fight their way out. He told the children to wait where they were and crept forward, alone, towards the growing light. He stopped and turned. If I don't come back, well, let's hope I come back. Timo and Jonathan waited in the silent dark, not daring to talk, listening intently for any noises ahead. They were extremely anxious. If their uncle was captured, or worse, what could they do? Run back to the troll-infested mountain? Trying to stand their ground and fight would be utterly hopeless. Their only chance was if Eber could defeat the trolls ahead and come back for them. Soon there was a great sound of fighting. Clashes of steel against steel, bodies against rock and floor, cries of pain and anger, and then silence. The boys, crouching to the floor, peered into the tunnel ahead, its dim light now growing very close. Had their uncle been victorious? Was he now approaching to see them to safety? Soon they heard footsteps, multiple footsteps, and they knew their uncle had not overcome the trolls. They turned and ran, but could not go far in the dark. Soon large hands reached from the dark behind them and snatched them up. They had been caught, and a voice spoke to them. It was cold and dark, and they recognized it immediately. Well, if it isn't our little thieves. Timo and Jonathan were thrown to the ground and found themselves surrounded by a group of trolls. They were large and in the light of their torches looked altogether horrid. Their muddy blue skin looked as if it were covered in boils, and their smell filled the passageway so that Timo and Jonathan both gagged. "What have you done to our uncle?" asked Jonathan defiantly, mustering all the courage he could. "He'll be all right," snarled the troll. "For now, at least." And there came a horrible laughter from the trolls as their uncle was dragged to the center of the group and thrown carelessly to the floor. He was alive, but unconscious, and had large cuts above his left eye and across his cheekbone. Looking around at the trolls, Timo noticed a few were nursing wounds to their arms and bodies. Eber had given them a good fight. "He'll soon be in the king's prison," snarled the familiar voice, who bent down and looked at his prisoners. "The first of many, I shouldn't wonder. Quite the honor." He laughed through a cold grin, and standing up he barked orders to the other trolls. "You two, when we get back to the gate, head down. You'll find somewhere there to make our prison. Those fairy fools didn't build 'em, so we'll have to make do. As for these two," he turned and looked at the children, "these two are going straight to the king." They all stood and started making their way back to the fairy halls. They moved at a fast pace. At the streams of gold and silver they paused, and the trolls gazed in wonder at the wealth of the mountain. "Stupid fairies didn't know what they were sitting on." They laughed and ran on. At the entrance to the western way, the group parted. Most took Eber, who was still unconscious, and dragged him off in one direction. Jonathan reached out to grab his uncle, trying desperately to keep the three together, but his actions were met with a troll fist to the face. He stumbled back with a fresh cut below his right eye. Two trolls remained with the brothers, and they sat down and started eating something from their pockets. The brothers looked on in disgust. They began to sit down, but the smaller troll looked at them and spat. "You stand." The boys backed off and stood against the wall. Timo, nervous and cold, was rubbing his arm with his hands, trying to warm himself, when he realized something. Not only had his elbow stopped hurting, but there was no longer any cut, scrape, or bruise. It was completely healed. He stared at his elbow, wondering what this meant. Had he indeed found the healing waters of the mountain? but he had found no well and no light, just a trickle of water coming from some unknown mountain spring. He had to find out for sure, and looking at his brother and the cut below his eye, he had an idea. The trolls had taken his pack along with his water skin and emergency survival kit, and it now laid between the two trolls. "Excuse me," said Timo. "We are tired and have had no water. May we drink some from my water skin?" He was met with blank stares from the trolls. The largest troll, who they had come to realize was the owner of the bow they had borrowed, picked up Timo's pack and opened it. "You mean this water skin?" He smirked, and taking the water skin, he took a large drink. The effect was immediate. Once the troll had drunk, he took in a large and fast breath, as if he had been drowning and had only reached the water's surface in time. He stared at Timo and did not speak. The other troll paid no attention. It seemed to Timo that something about the troll had immediately changed. He still looked and smelt like a troll, but his skin was not so muddy, and his face not so cruel. The troll looked at his partner, who was finishing his meal, some form of meaty bread that looked disgusting. Then he looked back to Timo, then to the water skin in his hand. "Go," he said to the other troll. "Go tell the king what we found." "Why?" the harsher voiced troll replied. "So you'll get all the reward for the capture?" "Tell him you caught him. I don't need no reward." The smaller troll smiled and ran off, leaving him alone with the two brothers. He waited until there was silence, then turned to Timo. "What have you done to me?" he asked quietly. I'm sorry," Timo started, not knowing what to say, but not wanting to anger the troll. "Do not apologize," said the troll. He was deep in thought, and after a pause he asked, "What is this?" He held up Timo's water skin. "Water?" replied Timo, not fully realizing what was taking place. "What do you mean?" "I can see color." The troll paused and gazed into his torch. "I have never seen color." Jonathan watched on, perplexed. "What is this?" he asked again. Water from..." Timo hesitated, not wanting to give away too much information. "From..." Timo sighed. "I found water in a secret room, down a secret stair." "This is not water," replied the troll. "I had a dream of stairs of light and a well. I followed it and found the water. My uncle told us of the healing waters of the mountain that could heal any disease and break any curse. I went looking for it, and maybe... The troll sat still, now staring at the floor. What the children could not see, nor the troll understand, was the change that had taken place within his heart and mind. He had been utterly transformed. He had been born a troll and had only ever had a troll's thoughts, dark and hopeless. Seeing color was a shock, but something he could define. Feeling no hate or fear was something altogether foreign to him, and he could not understand it. For the first time in his life, he felt free. Not that he had been aware of his captivity, but drinking the healing waters had lifted a heaviness over his heart that had been ever present but never noticed. Jonathan was starting to realize what was happening, but was still fearful of their predicament. "What will you do to us?" he asked. The troll sat still, not heeding the question. Presently, the smaller troll returned. "Hurry up, the king's waiting." The larger troll looked up at his partner and then at Timo, whose eyes now fell on his water skin and back to the troll, as if trying to say something. Taking the water skin, the troll held it up. "Take a swig of this," Tell me what you think." The other troll had no reason not to trust his partner and grabbed the water skin with a smirk, believing some mischief was afoot. No sooner had he gulped down the waters than he stumbled back, looked at the larger troll, then to the boys, paused, and fell to the floor. After a while, Timo was amazed to see that he was crying. The other troll looked on in amazement. Trolls never cried. This particular troll had hurt many, and had many hurts. His breaking was his healing, as years of torment and hatred were stripped off him. After some time he sat up and was quiet, trying to make sense of what had happened. "He found healing water," said the larger troll, pointing to Timo. "All trolls need this. We will tell the king." The other troll sat still, and after a long pause, he nodded. They both stood and gathered their things. The larger troll handed Timo his pack, and looking at the boys, he said, "I am Bold. He is Maggot." "Timo and Jonathan," Bold nodded.